Some people walk, and it's just a walk. But when you know you're anointed, your walk carries weight. You're not just moving. You're shifting atmospheres. You're not just existing. You're executing an assignment. You weren't created to merely survive this life. You were chosen to dominate it in divine power. See, when you're anointed, you don't walk in insecurity. When you're anointed, you don't walk in confusion. When you're anointed, you walk with confidence, clarity, and conviction. And today, I came to tell somebody, it's time to walk like you're anointed. Because you are. You've just been letting life convince you otherwise. Before anyone ever saw you, before a single hand applauded your efforts or a soul acknowledged your name, you were already chosen. Before you took your first breath, heaven had already written your assignment. Before your talent developed, before your confidence matured, before the spotlight ever hit your life, God had already anointed you in the dark. You were handpicked when you still felt hidden. You were marked when you felt overlooked. And that means your value isn't tied to their recognition. It's rooted in divine selection. You don't need their approval to walk in your assignment. You don't have to wait for someone to call you when God already chose you. The world celebrates when you arrive, but God anoints you before you even start. The enemy's been fighting you not because of who you are right now, but because of who you were destined to become. You were chosen while you were still unpolished. You were picked while you were still figuring it out. You were called before you even knew what calling was. That's why rejection couldn't disqualify you. That's why the betrayal didn't bury you. That's why being forgotten didn't erase your purpose. Because what was chosen in the Spirit cannot be canceled by man. You were selected before you were successful. You were appointed before you were applauded. And when you know that, you stop living for approval and start walking in authority. See, many are trying to earn what they've already been given. They're begging for a seat at a table God already built around them. But when you've been chosen, you don't knock on doors. You walk like you are the door. You don't beg for access. You carry access. You don't chase after opportunities. You attract them, not because of who you know, but because of who you are, anointed, appointed, and divinely aligned. The beauty of being chosen is that it has nothing to do with popularity. God doesn't choose the most popular, He chooses the most prepared. And sometimes He'll hide you to prepare you. He'll keep you in the back to sharpen your front. He'll keep you anonymous while He develops your anointing. So don't confuse hiding with rejection. Sometimes silence is heaven's strategy, not heaven's neglect. You may have walked through seasons where nobody called your name. Nobody validated your gift. Nobody clapped when you showed up. But you kept going. You kept serving. You kept praying. That's what chosen people do. They move faithfully without a crowd. They show up fully even when nobody's watching, because they don't need confirmation to function. They operate from a place of conviction. Chosen people often look strange to the world. Their pace is different. Their priorities are different. They don't fit in because they weren't called to blend. They were called to break patterns. They live by heaven's timeline, not human expectations. They understand that purpose takes time, that anointing is often marinated in obscurity, that God hides His best in seasons of preparation, so the enemy can't tamper with what's developing. You were chosen before the degrees, before the followers, before the influence. You were chosen before the platform was even built. And that's why you don't need to perform to be accepted. The anointing is not a performance. It's a positioning. It positions you in power when others are scrambling for attention. It gives you confidence when others. The anointing is not given just to make you feel spiritual or emotional. It comes with a purpose, an assignment, a divine responsibility. Too many people want the oil, but don't want the weight that comes with it. But real anointing is not about running, shouting, or even speaking in power. It's about walking in purpose. When the oil touches your life, it puts a demand on your soul. It means you are no longer available for just anything. You're not free to wander. You are under vast divine orders. The anointing aligns you with a higher call, and from that moment on, your steps are no longer casual. They're calculated by heaven. God doesn't anoint people for comfort. He anoints them for conflict, for calling, for His kingdom work. That oil isn't just symbolic, it's strategic. It places a mantle on your life to build, to fight, to serve, to lead, to heal, and to restore. When you're anointed, you're not just existing, you are executing the will of heaven on earth. And that means the moment you're anointed, you become a target. The enemy doesn't come after empty vessels. He comes after those filled with purpose. He comes after those who've been trusted with heaven's agenda. The assignment tied to your anointing won't always be glamorous. It might call you to places that are messy, to people who are broken, to situations that are uncomfortable. But that's the mark of someone truly anointed. They don't run from the fire. They run into it because they carry something stronger inside of them. You weren't anointed to sit. You were anointed to serve. You weren't anointed to be idle. You were anointed to impact. This is why isolation often precedes activation. Before you step into your assignment, you'll often be pulled away from the noise. Because heaven needs to tune your ear before it unleashes your voice. It needs to prepare your heart before it releases your hands. The oil comes with instruction. And when you're truly anointed, you don't just chase dreams, you fulfill mandates. You don't live by ambition, you live by assignment. When the anointing hits your life, excuses expire. You no longer have the luxury to stay stuck, scared, or silent. You've been entrusted with too much. There are lives on the other side of your obedience. There are chains waiting to be broken because of your yes. There are generations attached to your decision to walk in what you were called to do. And when you carry that awareness, your life shifts from self-centered to spirit-led. Anointing and comfort can't coexist because true anointing will always stretch you beyond what you thought you could do. It'll push you past what you're qualified for. It'll place you in rooms you didn't plan to be in. But that's the point. It's not about your ability. It's about, Christ says, His authority working through you. The oil qualifies what man disqualifies. The assignment attached to your anointing will often contradict your credentials. And that's how God gets the glory. Don't expect to carry oil and not face opposition. Every assignment comes with adversity. Every calling comes with critics. Every mantle comes with moments where you'll question if you're enough. But the anointing wasn't given based on your feelings. It was placed based on God's foresight. He saw the warfare and still picked you. He knew the cost and still poured it. He understood the burden and still chose your name. That's the power of heaven's assignment. It comes with grace to endure what others would collapse under. So when life feels heavy, don't automatically assume something's wrong. Sometimes that's the weight of your assignment reminding you that you're carrying something sacred. You'll feel the tension between ordinary living and extraordinary calling. You'll feel misunderstood, maybe even lonely. But you were never meant to fit in. You were anointed to stand out and stand up, to walk out a vision bigger than yourself. The oil gave you strength for the storms, wisdom for the wilderness, and fire for the fight. You can't be anointed and passive. You can't carry the oil and keep playing it safe. The anointing pushes you to move when others sit, to speak when others stay silent, to lead when others follow. It marks you as someone heaven can trust with territory, souls, and influence. That's why the weight of your assignment may feel overwhelming at times, because you've been set apart for something eternal. Your steps are now synchronized with heaven's strategy. When the anointing shows up, your life shifts from random to relevant. Every step starts to matter. Every delay starts to make sense. Every struggle starts to serve your purpose. Because now you're not just existing, you're executing. Not just breathing, you're building. And the oil on your life is the evidence that heaven has placed a blueprint in your hands. That blueprint is your assignment. That fire in your bones, that's your assignment. That pull in your spirit that won't let you settle, that's your assignment. There are some battles you're about to face that may look intimidating, may feel overwhelming, and may appear impossible. But the truth is, as you've already won them, not because of your strength, not because of your strategy, but because of the anointing that's on your life. The anointing doesn't eliminate the battle. It just shifts the outcome. It assures you that even though the weapon may form, it will not prosper. You're not walking into the fight hoping for victory. You're walking in with a victory already secured. When David walked into the valley to face Goliath, he didn't walk in guessing whether he could win. He walked in knowing he was anointed. The oil was already on his life before the battle showed up in his path. He didn't need a sword. He didn't need a title. He didn't need an army behind him. He walked in confidence because heaven was backing him. The battle was already decided before the first stone was thrown. That's what happens when you fight from a place of being chosen. The enemy loves to magnify the size of your obstacle. He wants you to see the height of the giant and forget the depth of your calling. He wants you to focus on your lack and forget your authority. But when you're anointed, you don't measure your problem by what you see. You measure it by what's been spoken. And what God has spoken over your life overrides every threat standing in front of you. Giants fall, not because you're skilled, but because you're sealed. You are not stepping into unfamiliar territory. You are reclaiming ground that was already promised to you. You are not stepping into new challenges with fear. You are moving in faith, knowing your steps were ordered before the problem ever showed up. Your enemy is not just fighting you. He's fighting what's already been declared over you. That's why the pressure is so intense. That's why the attacks are so aggressive. It's not because you're weak. It's because you're walking into what's already yours. There are moments when the enemy will try to convince you that you're unqualified, unequipped, and unprepared. But the anointing isn't about being ready by the world's standards. It's about being released by God's timing. And when you're walking in His timing, everything you need shows up when it's supposed to. You may not have all the answers, but you have the oil. You may not know every step, but you know who sent you, and that's more than enough to walk with confidence into every fight. Sometimes the battle is necessary, not because you need to prove yourself, but because God is using it to reveal who He already made you to be. Every giant is a stage for your oil to speak. Every challenge is a platform for your faith to show up. You don't need to shout to make the enemy tremble. The anointing speaks volumes. It speaks authority. It speaks assurance. It speaks a language that hell understands. The devil doesn't back down from noise. He backs down from oil. You are not walking in fear. You are walking in fulfillment. You are not stumbling in weakness. You are moving in wisdom. You are not approaching your obstacles unsure. You are confronting them with a confidence that can't be shaken. Because before the enemy ever knew your name, God had already declared your victory. Before the trial ever appeared, the outcome was already settled in the Spirit. That's why you can step into the fire and not burn. That's why you can walk through storms and still have peace. The anointing covers you in such a way that what takes others out doesn't even scratch the surface of your purpose. What drowns others strengthens your endurance. What crushes others sharpens your character. You've been graced to endure what should have broken you. You've been empowered to overcome what tried to stop you. And not because you're so strong, but because the battle wasn't yours to begin with. It belongs to the one who anointed you. You are walking into divine confrontations where God has already written the ending. And the ending is victory. The ending is breakthrough. The ending is expansion. The ending is testimony. You are not being set up to fall. You're being positioned to be. Evidence of God's faithfulness assuring. The battle is not your downfall. It's your elevation. It's the path to what was promised. And your job is not to retreat. It's to remember that you're anointed, and anointed vessels do not lose battles. They reveal victories. When you understand this, you stop asking, "Will I win?" and start declaring, "I've already won." You stop approaching life with timidity and start moving with boldness. You stop praying scared and start walking strong. Because the anointing on your life doesn't just speak of who you are. It testifies of every enemy you've already overcome. Your walk is prophetic. Your presence is powerful. And your future is already written in the ink of victory. When you're truly anointed, you're never walking alone, even when it feels like you're the only one standing. You might not see the crowd. You might not hear the applause. You might not even feel understood. But heaven is with you. The anointing doesn't come to isolate you without reinforcement. It comes with divine backup. It comes with unseen armies, angelic presence, and a covenant that guarantees you're not walking through this life without supernatural support. Your company is not defined by who walks beside you physically. It's determined by who walks with you spiritually. There will be times when people fall away. Friends will distance themselves. Supporters will disappear. The ones who once stood beside you may no longer recognize your calling, and their silence might echo louder than any rejection. But that does not mean you're abandoned. That's just the pruning process that comes with elevation. The anointing will separate you before it activates you. But while people walk out, God steps in. He walks with you into the fire. into the storm, into the unknown. Yes, and his presence never leaves. Anointed people understand that loyalty from men is seasonal, but a favor from God is eternal. The ones who once believed in you may change their minds, but the one who chose you never will. When you're anointed, you're not sustained by the opinions of others. You're anchored in the presence of the one who called you. And even when you can't trace his hand, you can trust his plan. He walks with you in the silence, he strengthens you in the struggle, and he leads you when your vision is clouded. There's a weight that comes with being chosen that often can't be shared. But even in that weight, there is grace. There is supernatural strength that flows when you feel like you can't take another step. And that strength isn't random, it's relational. It comes from knowing that you are not navigating life alone. That no valley, no mountain, no prison, and no wilderness can separate you from the presence that goes before you, stands beside you, and covers you from behind. When you walk in the anointing, your steps are divinely guided. You are not wandering aimlessly. You are following a path ordered by the Most High. And even when detours come, even when delays happen, you're not off course. You're being developed. You're being refined. You're being walked through preparation by the very hand of God. That's why you can walk with assurance even when the road is unclear. Because you're not walking based on what you see, but on Phrase who is walking with you. Even when life seems unfair, when betrayal strikes, and when heartbreak tries to consume your hope, the anointing ensures you're never left to recover by yourself. God walks with the wounded. He binds up the broken. He whispers to the weary. He doesn't just assign you. He accompanies you. The anointing is not an invitation to loneliness. It's a gateway to intimacy. Intimacy with the one who sees the unseen, and knows the unknown, and loves you through every shadow. When others question your path, and even you start to wonder if you're still on track, the presence that walks with you becomes your compass. You don't move based on affirmation. You move based on direction. You're not motivated by crowds. You're led by conviction. That's what separates the anointed from the popular. You're not following trends. You're following truth. And truth has a voice that echoes even in the dark. The enemy wants you to believe that your isolation means abandonment. But isolation is often the canvas where God paints the clearest picture of his companionship. In the stillness, in the quiet, in the absence of noise, you begin to hear him like never before. His voice becomes your anchor. His word becomes your fuel. His presence becomes your shelter. That's how you survive when the room is empty. Because your spirit knows it's full. Anointed people may walk through the same storms others face, but they do so with a different covering. You don't just face life. You face it wrapped in purpose, backed by power, and filled with peace that makes no sense to the natural mind. You don't collapse under the pressure because there's a presence that holds you up. When the pressure tries to take you out, you may feel pain, but the pain never defines you. His presence does. You are not alone in this journey. Every step you take, every decision you face, every obstacle in your path, there's a divine shadow walking beside you. There's a voice that whispers when the world is loud. There's a strength that lifts when your knees buckle. And it all flows from the anointing. Because once you've been anointed, you never walk alone. Not in joy, not in sorrow, not in victory, not in weakness. You're never alone. not for a single moment. The moment the anointing is placed on your life, the atmosphere shifts around you. You start attracting attention, not just from those who admire your growth, but from those who feel threatened by it. The anointing puts a spotlight on you, even when you didn't ask for it. You begin to draw eyes, conversations, and reactions simply by walking in what you've been called to do. People will start to see something different about you, something they can't quite explain. It's not charisma. It's not charm. It stirs the weight of glory on your life, and it makes others curious, convicted, or even uncomfortable. There's a spiritual fragrance on the anointed that can't be faked and can't be denied. It disrupts spaces that have grown too familiar with darkness. You'll notice that your presence will start to expose things. Insecurities, false motives, hidden agendas. Not because you're trying to, but because as the light you carry reveals what's been hiding in the shadows. People will mislabel you, misunderstand you, and even try to minimize you. Not because you did something wrong, but because you're doing something right. Opposition often doesn't come because you're off track. It comes because you've found your lane. You'll find that criticism increases not when you fall behind, but when you step forward. The anointing calls attention to your calling, but it also calls out the complacency of others. Your faith agitates their fear. Your boldness exposes their timidity. Your progress reminds them of their stagnation. And for some, that's too much to handle. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's what you carry that creates resistance. You'll walk into rooms and feel tension, not because you've offended someone, but because your presence interrupts their comfort zone. The oil on your life disturbs what's been dormant in others. And instead of rising to the occasion, some will resent the reminder that they've stopped moving. You've become a mirror they'd rather avoid. Jealousy is often a response to visible anointing. You may not have done anything, but obeyed. You may not have said a word, but walked in your purpose. Yet that alone causes hearts to shift, eyes to roll, and conversations to start. The anointing reveals the hidden competition in people you thought were for you. It uncovers the quiet comparisons in those you once confided in. It turns some smiles into stares and some support into silence. That's not by accident. That's the spiritual cost of divine placement. The enemy doesn't waste resources on those who pose no threat. So when all hell starts breaking loose after you take a step of obedience, don't retreat. Recognize the confirmation. The attack isn't about your past. It's about your potential. The opposition is not punishment. It's proof that you carry weight in the Spirit. The anointing on your life puts you on the radar of both heaven and hell. And when you begin walking in it, you will be challenged. But know this, the same oil that draws enemies also draws divine protection. The same anointing that invites battles also guarantees victory. You won't face resistance alone. Heaven surrounds the anointed. There's a hedge, a hand, and a host that covers those carrying the call. You may be targeted, but you're also shielded. You may be surrounded, but you're also supported. And that's why the enemy can't win. The opposition may rise, but so will you, because you're covered to conquer. Don't be surprised when you lose people along the way. The anointing will not only elevate you, it will separate you. Not because you're better, but because your oil demands a different environment. You can't carry the weight of your assignment and also carry the weight of unnecessary relationships. Some people were assigned to your previous season, but not to your current purpose. And when the anointing increases, alignment has to shift. Sometimes it's the fire of your calling that reveals the impurities in others. You were never meant to dim your light to make others feel secure in their shadows. You were never meant to walk smaller so others don't feel convicted by your growth. You don't have to apologize for walking in what you were called to carry. The oil wasn't your idea. It was heaven's. And since heaven gave it, heaven will handle the backlash. So while the anointing may attract attention and even opposition, don't let that push you into hiding. Let it push you into deeper obedience. Let it drive you further into your assignment. Because if the anointing caused the storm, then the anointing will also silence it. You're not here to please people. You're here to obey God. And when you're anointed, even your enemies are just another platform for purpose. So today, walk like you're anointed. Walk like heaven is backing you. Walk like you're the answer to a problem. Walk like you've been sent on divine assignment. Stop apologizing for being different. Stop hiding your power. Stop living like you're average when you've been called to be anointed. You were born to walk in purpose, to live with fire, and to move with kingdom boldness. The world doesn't need another copy. They need the anointed original that is you. So straighten your shoulders, fix your crown, and walk like you're anointed, because you are